A 17-year-old girl vanished from the pharmacy where she worked part-time. At first, everyone assumed she had simply gone home, but when the manager began reviewing the security footage, he saw something alarming and eventually uncovered a chilling truth. In this video, we will tell you what happened to Riley Whitelaw and why this case sparked public outrage. Riley Whitelaw was born on January 20, 2005, in Colorado Springs, Colorado. From an early age, the girl was passionate about drawing, dancing, and playing the guitar. She achieved significant success in all these endeavors. Riley won prizes in various city and school competitions with her paintings. In high school, she volunteered at a charity organization helping animals. Riley spent almost all her free time there, despite a busy study schedule. At 16, she also took a job at a pharmacy to earn her own pocket money. Riley spent several days a week there, balancing work with school and volunteering. She quickly found common ground with the team and was generally happy with the job. On June 11, 2022, she arrived for her shift at the pharmacy as usual. Around 5:30 p.m., Riley went to the staff break room for her scheduled lunch. Half an hour later, the manager noticed that Riley had not returned to her post. She walked around the store but couldn't find her, after which she called the morning shift manager and asked him to return to the pharmacy. Initially, they thought the girl had simply left her shift without notifying management. The second manager decided to verify this and began checking security camera footage from across the store. When he got to the recording from the staff break room, the manager noticed something strange. Hours earlier, another employee had stacked boxes of products on top of each other in such a way that the resulting structure completely blocked the security camera's view. This was suspicious because that room was not intended for storing merchandise at all. The manager also noticed that the room's windows were covered with paper and tape. The man clearly remembered that during his morning shift, none of this was there. Finally, he saw that a closed sign was hanging on the public restroom, which was also odd. That area was usually only locked when the store closed. Ultimately, the manager decided to check inside the staff break room. His colleague, who had previously walked through the entire pharmacy looking for Riley, hadn't entered that room because she assumed the girl would have left long ago after lunch. The manager headed there around 7 p.m., and to his horror, he found Riley on the floor. There were significant signs of a struggle and visible injuries, and the man immediately called the police. Investigators arrived to examine the scene and immediately realized they were dealing with a crime. First, they spoke with the managers, who told them about the strange footage and the covered windows. Detectives immediately asked for the name of the employee who had blocked the surveillance cameras with boxes. It turned out to be 28-year-old Joshua Johnson. However, he was no longer at the pharmacy. None of his colleagues saw him leave the store, but the evening shift manager shared an interesting fact with the detectives. When the woman was looking for Riley, she looked outside and smelled a strong scent of bleach coming from the dumpsters. She wanted to get closer, but a man's voice called out from behind the bins, claiming he was changing clothes and asking her not to look. The woman was very surprised and returned to the pharmacy to tell her colleague. When they went outside together, there was no one near the dumpsters, but an empty bottle of bleach was lying on the ground. Police quickly managed to find the first witness. A female customer was in the pharmacy around 5:44 p.m. when she heard a female scream and some noise. The scream ended quickly, and the woman didn't give it much thought. Similar statements were given by several other customers and even other pharmacy employees. They all heard a muffled female cry, yet none of them investigated what was happening. Thus, investigators established a rough timeline of that evening's events. Riley was supposed to be on lunch from 5:30 to 6, and during this break, she was attacked. For nearly an hour, the pharmacy managers couldn't find her until one of them decided to look into the break room. Meanwhile, medical experts examined the victim and determined that she had sustained 42 injuries from a sharp object, as well as trauma to the head. Based on the available information, police suspected Joshua Johnson of the act. Not only had he covered the camera in that room hours before the tragedy, but he also fled the pharmacy shortly after the incident without notifying management of his departure mid-shift. But that was far from the only thing pointing to his potential involvement. After speaking with Riley's friends and relatives, they uncovered a disturbing fact. The girl had repeatedly complained about harassment from Joshua. Mostly, he tried to persuade her to go on a date with him and constantly made various personal compliments that made the girl uncomfortable. When she started working at the store, she was 16, and Joshua was 27. Despite this, and despite Riley's constant refusals and complaints, the man didn't even think about giving up. As a result, the girl approached the manager and asked him to deal with this problem. He promised to take necessary measures, but in the end, the man only spoke to Joshua, and asked him to behave more professionally in the workplace. Naturally, this brought no results, and Joshua continued his attempts to win the girl over. In March 2022, the situation only worsened. Riley's boyfriend got a job at the same pharmacy, and Joshua was extremely unhappy about this fact. According to his colleagues, he was jealous of Riley and behaved quite aggressively. The situation was aggravated by the fact that all three worked on the same shifts. In late May, just a few weeks before the tragedy, Riley again approached management and asked to change her work schedule so it wouldn't overlap with Joshua's shifts. She explained that his behavior was getting worse and it was simply impossible to work with him. However, the manager stated they couldn't completely change her schedule. He offered her work at different times, but with a reduction in hours. Even though this meant a significant drop in income, Riley agreed. A few days before the incident, she went to the manager again and asked for more hours. He said this was only possible if Riley took evening shifts again, where she would have to work with Joshua. The girl had to agree because, with the reduced hours, her income had dropped significantly. Thus, for a whole year, Riley tried to get management to take some action that would allow her not to worry about her safety, but they only shrugged their shoulders. Knowing all this, the police became even more convinced of Joshua's involvement. That same evening, they put out a warrant for him. The next day, the man was found. Patrol officers noticed him walking along the shoulder of a highway near the city of Trinidad, more than 100 miles from the scene of the crime. As soon as they stopped and approached Joshua, officers noticed scratches on his face, neck, and hands. Additionally, there were dark stains on his clothes. He offered no resistance and went with him to the station. Meanwhile, detectives located Joshua's car, abandoned under a railroad overpass. Inside, they found stained towels and bandages, as well as disposable razor blades. According to police, Joshua had tried to cut his own hair, but only partially succeeded. The floor mats were also missing from the car. In the first interrogation, he claimed he didn't harm Riley. According to Joshua, that day he went into the break room and saw the girl on the floor. Standing over her was an unknown man armed with a weapon. Joshua claimed he lunged at him, and as a result of a short struggle, he received those scratches. At some point, he managed to break free and run away. Detectives asked why he didn't call the police or tell anyone what happened. Joshua's answer was very strange. He said the attacker knew his home address, so he got scared and decided to stay silent. Naturally, investigators were in no hurry to believe this dubious story. Security cameras didn't record any outsiders who could have entered the staff room. On the contrary, the footage clearly showed Joshua himself blocking the camera's view with boxes. When asked why he did that, the man began to deny it, despite undeniable evidence. Later, he slightly changed his story and said he went into the staff room, slipped in a pool of fluid, stained his clothes, and went home to change. At the same time, Joshua stated he hadn't had any romantic feelings for Riley for a long time. He admitted he tried to court her during their first months working together, but later he entered into a romantic relationship with his female boss. The woman immediately refuted these words and said she and Joshua communicated exclusively on work matters. Shortly after his arrest, the man was charged with first-degree offenses. In September, he appeared in court for the first time for a preliminary hearing. The judge listened to several witnesses from among Riley's colleagues, as well as detectives on the case. They all expressed complete confidence in Joshua's involvement and stated that no one else had the motive or physical opportunity to commit this crime. According to the investigation, Joshua had planned this act from the very beginning of his shift. He covered the camera in the staff room and taped up the windows, then waited for Riley to go on her lunch break. When she was in the room, he attacked her, but the girl put up resistance. She scratched his face and hands, but ultimately, Joshua took her life. Then he tried to wipe up the evidence with towels, but failed. Apparently, he didn't expect the victim to fight back so hard and interfere with his plans to hide the deed. Realizing he couldn't clean up, the man decided to simply flee. Before that, he tried to wash the stains off his clothes with bleach, after which he threw the stained towels into the car and drove away. Joshua's lawyer, in turn, insisted that there was no significant evidence against his client. He suggested the crime could have been committed by someone else and that Joshua was innocent. The man currently remains in custody awaiting trial. If he claims innocence, the process could drag on for several years. However, no one has the slightest doubt that he is behind this tragedy. With his ridiculous versions of events, he only strengthens suspicions against himself. However, Joshua is not the only one blamed for Riley's passing. After this story hit the news, people accused the pharmacy's management of inaction that led to the tragedy. If the managers had listened to her complaints and requests, the sad outcome could have been avoided. Future court hearings on this case are scheduled for the coming months, and we may learn some new details. For now, share your opinion in the comments, and don't forget to like the video if you found it interesting. Thanks for watching.